What's up, guys? Here we are. We're back with another video talking about point of ventures, how to refine them, and all that good stuff. So we're just gonna jump straight into it. Here I have a solidified structural range here, right? And as you can see, we're price broke structure. Now, here is where we want to talk about the last point of supply and how to the best way that I fit suit to identify the last point of supply. Now, just in case you didn't know, my trading style is based around Wyckoff ideology, so that's where my whole concept of LPSY come from. So if you want to look further deep in that, you can always go Google Wyckoff, LPSY schematics, and all that good stuff as well. However, so here, this is where a bit of confusion can come in because you have some people often question, well, was a true breaker structure at the body or the wick? And I wouldn't necessarily say either of those answers are wrong. However, for me to distinguish between a true breaker structure when there is confusion, I go to the line chart. And when I go to the line chart from here, I can see that the true breaker structure actually took place here, which would be the very top of the point of interest here, right? So from there, that helps me gauge further enterprise as far as a zone that I'm gonna focus more so on. Now, that's not to say that I will completely negate this area here and completely tone it out. However, I would just approach this area just a little bit more, not necessarily cautious per se, but as far as thinking in foresight, I might have a different approach to say that, okay, if price does come back in the zone and react, maybe it could potentially be creating like, if the price was to run up and then come back down, it could potentially be creating from a intraday perspective, a higher low for price just to come back in here and swing lower. So kind of like things of that nature. So that is another good tip as well, as when you are trading, thinking in foresight is key. So we'll just keep moving on from here. So from here, we solidified the last point of supply is here. So now I'm going to zoom into this zone here, this engulfing candle right here. So when I zoom into that zone on the 1 minute, the very first thing I can see is that we have an inefficient price range, which is unsustainable, which is one of the key things I love to see in supply or demand zones. Now, in this case, it was on the move out, right? Leaving this price range unsustainable essentially lets me know that price needs to come back to this zone and make price efficient. Now, on top of this, I can see how New York goes and runs London's buy-side liquidity here. So now I'm correlating sessions with structures, liquidity grabs, all that, just building more confluence inside of the zone. Now here, setting the invalidation point, as I mentioned, you can't set invalidation points inside of supply and demand zones, points where you could say, okay, I don't want price to go no higher than here or no lower than this point here. And if so, then I would kind of alter my game plan a little bit, maybe look at things a little bit different. In this case, the invalidation point was not too hard to set because this whole entire range was inefficient. So you was essentially setting it at the very top of the candle, which differs from the very first example that we did on GU. However, if we look here, this is the actual point of interest that we said that we would look over, but not necessarily negate. We could monitor price here. As you can see, it did leave a point of a range here that was left inefficient. The mitigations are here pretty solid. Another thing, just another little tip that I would like to speak on before I go to the next slide is I'm gonna bounce back here real quick. And as you can see, if none of this was here, you could actually see that this right here is a demand zone, right? And if you see here, this last rally up just barely missed this demand zone as well before the rally. So thinking of thinking in foresight as well is that if none of this was here and this was rallying back up for this demand zone, all of that doing is essentially creating liquidity in the market. I touch on that part at my manipulative price action session where I said it was kind of like the market is manipulating, right, and things of that nature. So that's just more confluence you can add to it. So the very last slide I'm gonna show to wrap this up is going to be, I'm sorry that I had to wait because when I'm on Zoom, that the top of that thing slides down and getting away of me switching to the chart. But nonetheless, so as you can see, price did come back to this zone and react. And that's stated thinking in foresight from a scalp perspective. The only thing it did was create a higher low, you know, higher low to then run price back up into here, right? So that's just another key point thing that you can just keep in mind. It's like thinking in foresight, we're kind of like if this, then that, if it does react, then what would I like to see, right? So as you can see here, price came back and filled this entire range of inefficiency, tapped the refined point of interest, the invalidation point remained intact, and then trades away significantly. So this video was not too long, very quick and to the point. I hope it was useful. The one thing that I do like about this video and all the other videos that are to kind of give you a nice glossary to go through, kind of train the eye to see, not necessarily looking for anything in specific, but the variation of examples, the different examples that I have, all deferred and very unique, which I really like. So it kind of just gives you a broad library of how you can approach supply and demand zone. So hope this video was helpful. I'll see you guys in the next one.